shortly.
Okay.
Lisa's
I'd like
here.
to call to order tonight's meeting, the Oswego City School District's School Safety Plan hearing, public hearing, and the regular Board of Education meeting. Tom Chapa,
Here.
Heather Del Conte,
Here.
Pamela Dowd,
Here.
Lisa Glidden,
Here.
James McKenzie, Sean Onmet,
Here.
Linda Serino,
Here.
and Zachary DeMont. At this time, I will hand the meeting over to Dr. Calvin.
Thank you so much. And Dr. McKenzie is here. I see Jim on right.
Yep, thank you.
All right. Well, good evening, board. This evening, we are here to start our meeting tonight out by just kind of going over some of the information in our school safety plan. Every year, by law, we have to make sure that we look at our school safety plan and then update wherever updates are needed, and then share that information with the state ed department. Matt, if you can just go right to the next screen. And so just as a precursor, I know that there are people who are on tonight who are watching this hearing. So I'm sure that people may have questions about all the details and all of the intricate parts of this plan. So there is some information that we would not be sharing in this hearing format because it would compromise the health and safety of our community if that information was there. So we will certainly highlight those key areas that are in the plan, but there are some things that we would not be able to share in an open forum given the health and safety risk. And that certainly if we did so, that might present. Okay, so just an overview. The district safety plan is a general response to emergencies and incidences that might occur in schools. Detailed school plans are individualized to school buildings, and again, they are confidential. The plan was developed pursuant to the Commissioner's Regulations 155.17, and the plan is reviewed periodically and is made available for public comment 30 days before the adoption of the by the board. The plan will then be posted once it is fully adopted by the board onto our district website. Again, and there's some information that will not be posted for health and safety concerns for the community. Okay, Matt? So the components of the plan that we'll talk a little bit about tonight are the chain of command, which involves incident responders, risk reduction and prevention and intervention strategies, and that involves program initiatives, training and drills, staff responsibilities, early detection of violent behaviors, hazard identification, responses that we certainly have outlined in the plan with respect to notification and activation, and then recovery efforts, post-incident objectives. Okay, Matt? So I think we'll start out with chain of command, and Nancy is over our security. So Nancy, please at any time feel free to share information that you might have. So in this portion of the plan, what we actually have done is we've identified incident responders. So for the purpose of the plan and just in general, the superintendent is the chief executive officer, and he's also the chief emergency officer of the entire district, he or she. And in his or her absence, the responsibilities then go on to the next alternate person that is in charge. And, so whenever there's something that happens or, I'm out of the district, we certainly make sure that we leave someone in charge, whether that's Carrie or Heidi or Nancy. And then that's the point person if they cannot get a hold of me. When the chief the chief emergency officer has been notified that an emergency exists, he or she serves as the incident commander, activating the appropriate procedures, directing the emergency responses and actions, and coordinating with emergency responders. And, even if I'm out of the district, often I'm still very much so in touch with the district and still making sure that things are working very smoothly. So just wanted to talk a little bit about that chain of command. Okay, go ahead, Matt. In terms of risk reductions and prevention and intervention strategies, some of the things that we do in our district is we look for ways to make sure we can minimize risk and prevent anything that might happen that might cause a health or safety issue. And so we try to intervene. And how do we do that? Well, first of all, we have a number of program initiatives. And to make sure we put those initiatives into place, we utilize our Director of Student Services, Support Services, and also numerous interventions across the district. Each school certainly has a safety plan that they have in place, and they have safety programs. They have assemblies that they talk to children about with respect to how to report if they see that there's any concerning behaviors, and also how to prevent incidences from occurring. On the district's website, there's information and links that are related to the Dignity for All Students Act, DASA, as we know it. So if we have concerns across the community, we certainly ask people to report that to us. And then all of those concerns are investigated one at a time to make sure that we can prevent and intervene if there are issues happening across the district that might cause risk or concerns for students. The district's website also includes an electronic tip line to report incidences of bullying, fighting, personal crises, safety risks, drugs and alcohol, you name it. If people see something, we want them to say something. So we do have a tip line. It is on the district website. And if you go throughout several of our environments, in fact, I was just over at the high school, you can see that tip line posted in the hallways for children to be able, and for adults to be able to share any tips that they might see or concerns that they might have experienced or that they might have, that they may have heard about with the district. We do have a crisis team, and we also have a response program. When there's an incident that occurs, we do have people who go out to our schools or who may be already in the schools who are there to respond and to support our entire community. Those folks may include school administrators, counselors, teachers, trusted folks that are in the building, our security monitors, a number of people to help respond whenever we have a crisis or concern that presents. We do make sure that we have into place a conflict resolution. We have counselors and administrators who do work with students and staff whenever there is a conflict that occurs, and those folks are there to help and to make sure that issues are resolved in a timely fashion and that they're taken care of really to the best of the district's ability. Next, we have student council and extracurricular organizations that help us to get out positive messages to kids about how we should treat one another, how we should respect one another, and also those organizations also help us out with, if there are students who are having, difficulties or experiencing, challenges, they also encourage students and our entire community to, report those incidences to some of the adults that are around the district. We provide and ensure small group and individual counseling for any student that might be having some challenges. That counseling also we like to be preventative instead of reactive. So we do make sure that we do have folks there all around in every school who can help and support. There is an adult in every building that can help and support, whether it's small group or individual group or individual counseling. We have in place a code of conduct that is utilized regularly to assist with and it's actually a guide that helps to make sure that if we see difficulties happening in the schools, this guide is there to help make sure that we have structure around our schools and that we can respond in a certain way when we see concerning behavior. And we also have a number of character education programs that are happening across the districts in our elementary schools. We have, for example, Second Step, which is a program that's there to be preventative, and it talks a lot about risk reduction, how to prevent challenges from occurring in our school environments. And they also provide students with a number of interventions and strategies as to how they might be able to resolve concerns and also report concerns if they see them or hear about them. Aside from those program initiatives, we also have into place a number of specialized program offerings for students who are a part of our district as well. So we do have special education programs, which do have, if necessary, related services attached to them to help prevent and intervene for students who might need intervention. We provide alternative education programs through the district. We are partnered with our city BOCES to help with providing that program. And we have career and technical education programs that often really help some of our students who are struggling or having some challenges. It's a different type of program that meets students where they're at and really supports students across the board. So we have numerous programs that we also offer that are specialized as well. Okay, Matt. As a part of our plan, we also have ongoing training, drills, and exercises. So we do have, school safety personnel, which includes our security guards, our SRO officers. We have, teachers, staff, monitors, a number of people who are across our district who support students with respect to security. And each year there is a training program that is offered. As we begin the year, there's a number of modules that folks have to go through, which involves school safety professional development. And we do a number of drills every year throughout the year. So we have our general evacuation drills, shelter in place drills, hold in place, lockdowns, and lockouts. And all of those drills are designed to make sure that students are prepared and ready and know how to react should an emergency present itself in the district. Okay. Okay, go ahead, Matt. So, in terms of implementation of our school security, so we have, basic security procedures that we certainly make sure that we have in place in all of our district sites. When people come in, there is, before visitors can come to our school, there is a screening process that they must go through to make sure that we, can secure the health and safety of our students. Each of our staff do have responsibilities. For when you walk in the door, there's a staff member there who has you sign in. They take you through a process so that you can be screened. And then, if you need to see someone, they get you to the exact person. They make sure that you're not just wandering the schools by yourself. So we do have a number of people who help to implement those security procedures. School monitors are really a big part of the work that we do. They monitor our hallways. They look for any signs or concerns and report those to the administration and make sure that people are doing what they're supposed to do throughout our buildings and in our hallways. We do have a number of security devices that are in place across the district to assist us with security. One of those, we have equipment besides devices, for example, security cameras throughout all of our buildings, not only internal but also external. And we now this year have an additional security layer because of our recent capital project work, and that is the blue light system. So, and that blue light system right now is on the main campus between Layton and also the high school. So if there are any concerns external outside of the building, people do have blue lights all around that they can go and tap, and that will immediately alert us that there are some issues happening outside. Okay. Nancy, did I miss anything there? We're good? Okay. All right, go ahead, Matt. One of the things that, we really work on is early detection of violent behaviors. When we see that children are having trouble, our goal is to intervene right away so that we can prevent incidences from occurring that might result in some safety concerns for the entire learning community. And in early detection, our staff and students observe and look for certain warning signs or potential, violent behaviors in order to prevent violence. We have we make sure that information regarding early detection is presented to staff and students in September each year and is reviewed periodically throughout the academic year. And violent behavioral concerns are identified and addressed in the district's code of conduct. We use that code of conduct consistently to make sure that when we see violent behaviors that students are addressed, that behavior is addressed as quickly as possible with the guidance of our code of conduct. Go ahead, Matt. With respect to hazardous identification, this plan does require that we have a hazardous identification process as well. And the school district does recognize that emergencies can occur in school buildings. We recognize they can occur on playgrounds, gymnasiums, fields, buses, shops, and areas where tools are used in special education classrooms, general education classrooms, and off-site field trips. And so we have surveyed sources of potential emergencies within our school buildings, grounds, and community locations. We have site maps and floor plans for all of our buildings, and they've been provided to our local police and other emergency responders. We have ongoing conversations with our emergency responders. Those conversations are kept confidential, of course, due to security reasons. But our goal is to make sure that if something does happen, our emergency responders are able to know where things are within our sites, and they know how we operate, basically. Responses to emergencies are also addressed in the building level emergency response plans so that everyone has the correct procedures and everybody's on the same page in terms of how we respond when there is a hazard issue or a concern in any of the buildings. Matt, go ahead. Now, in terms of responses, whenever there's an issue, we want to make sure that people know. So we do have, as a part of this plan, information on notification and activation. So we do contact law enforcement in the events of emergency per the regulations. We do keep in touch with our law enforcement folks. Not only do we contact them when there's an emergency, but we're proactive. We speak weekly in some cases with our law enforcement communities and also our emergency responders. In fact, just last week, I had a meeting with the chief, the fire chief, Nancy and Dave and I, prior to that, I met that same day earlier with some folks from our SRO area. And then the day before that, met with people from our local police department. So we are in constant conversation so that people kind of know what's happening in the district, and we get to know what's happening throughout the community. And, you know, when we contact each other, it's not like we're meeting for the first time. So we do make sure that we made sure in this plan that we do have contact procedures for law enforcement and emergency responders. We have protocols in place for internal and external notification. And this includes, you know, how we notify district sites, all of our sites, so that if something's going on, we have a way to communicate right away through email, through robocalls, through a phone tree, you name it. We've got a number of ways that we can communicate with folks. We do have information from the state ed department, and if we have an issue or an incident, there are names and folks that we have to contact from state ed. And then also we have a number of processes that we can use to communicate with parents, guardians, and our entire community. And so that is through eBlast. We can communicate right away through robocall, through Parent Square. We have a number of ways to get to folks right away. And then lastly, we have emergency response procedures and protocols in place whenever there are incidences that occur in buildings. And again, I share with you, we have hold in place or lock in, lock out drills, all of those different types of responses we do have in place in our district. Okay, Matt? Now, when an incident is over, we certainly always go back and take a look to see what happened and how things went in during those incidents. So when an emergency is over, district administrative officials, you know, we evaluate the incident. We consider the needs of students and staff, and so we talk in some cases with our staff and students to sometimes hear how did things go and what happened. We make sure that we have support in place where we find issues, training, counseling, whatever it is that's needed. And then a report of all of the information, once it's all compiled, is sent or given to me or the designee that I may have in place. And then we certainly do a debriefing session to discuss follow through or things that may need to be different. We routinely review and revise, you know, plans where we need to, whenever we have to. And then also there's a discussion and implementation of staff professional development, student training, and parent information and support wherever need be as well. So we have an incident and we find something that's different. We sit down, we talk about it, we put new things in place, and then we make sure that folks have the information so everybody's on the same page. Okay? All right, go right ahead, Matt. Okay. So those are the components of our safety plan, and we wanted to make sure that we shared that with the board per Regulation 155, and wanted to make sure that you had all the information and our public as well. Are there any questions from the board this evening with respect to the plan?
Dr. Calvin, I also wanted to share with you that no questions were received by from the public.
All right, thank you.
At this time.
Great. Nancy, did we miss anything else that we want to make sure we gave or shared to this evening?
No, Dr. Calvin, you did a great job. Thanks.
Okay. All right. Well, if there are no questions from the board and we don't have any questions from the community, we're all set with that portion of our meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
At this time, the Board of Education will move to a regular session. I believe the Board of Education would like to move to executive session. And for what reason?
Personnel.
Could I have a motion?
Make the motion.
Second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? You may move to executive session. Please use the link that was sent to you for executive session. Adjourn executive session, please.
Yes, Jim made the motion at 5:11 and Tom seconded also at 5:11.
Okay. Could I also have a motion to return to regular session, please?
I'll make the motion.
Second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Next on the agenda is floor to the public. At this time, I have not received any items from the public. So that will move the board to the Board of Education, which is the Oswego Classroom Teachers Association Memorandum of Understanding dated December 16, 2021, as presented. Could I have a motion?
Move it.
Second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next on the agenda is the superintendent's report with Dr. Calvin.
All right. Good evening again, board. We will just kind of jump right here into our report. Go ahead, Matt, to the next screen, please. All right, so I think we want to start tonight by congratulating several groups of our students. I want to certainly congratulate our middle school students who were recently recognized for outstanding all-around efforts for the first quarter of the 21-22 school year. And to receive this honor, students had to achieve perfect attendance, outstanding behavior, and pass all of their classes. Students who earn this honor will be recognized on the OMS student recognition wall in the main hallway of the school. So again, congratulations to all of those students for their outstanding all-around efforts. Second of all, we have some high school students who've been spreading holiday cheer this season. We have several clubs, athletic teams, and organizations who recently volunteered time with the Salvation Army. They were out and helping with the Red Kettle campaign. The goal was to try to really help those who are less fortunate. So our students, club advisors, coaches who volunteered, we had a number of people out helping and supporting. We just want to tell them, great job, and we certainly, it's great to see our students giving back to the community in whatever way they possibly can. So we just wanted to recognize those efforts this evening. Okay, go right ahead. So I wanted to just update you on a couple things, board. First of all, in terms of our temporary pivot to remote, so far people are doing pretty well with respect to the remote. When we hear questions or hear of concerns, our goal is always to respond as quickly as we can. And just to be clear, because I know that we have some public folks who are watching this meeting tonight, I just want to make sure people understand our return date at this time is for January the 3rd. That is our goal at this time. I guess there's some rumors going on around there that we're thinking about going to February or March. I don't know where that's coming from, but right now our goal is to be back on January 3rd. If there is any change, we will certainly let parents know way in advance. But right now, our goal is to have children back in person on January 3rd. Just in terms of screening testing, we are ready to go. We now have all of the testing, all of the approvals, all of the program up, ready to go. We're really excited about that. When we return on January 4th, our testing teams will be in the schools, and anyone who would like to participate in that screening testing process can now be screened. We're all set. Our teams are all ready to move forward. Also today, we heard in the news that the governor is now asking that schools consider doing test to stay in school programs. So that there was some information that we received a couple weeks ago around test to stay. And in that information that we received, originally what we heard was that it was not recommended to do that. And if we were going to do it, health departments were going to have to make the ruling, individual health departments were going to have to rule that they could do it. They had to make sure that all schools could do it. And what it involves is basically if a student has been exposed to COVID-19 or has a symptom, they can stay in school as long as they test negative. And they would have to go through 7 days worth of testing in order to kind of move through that cycle, basically. And that would be offered for students and for staff. So right now, so we had the governor talking about it. Local health departments weren't quite ready for that discussion yet. And schools, we really don't have any information at this point in time. So my hunch is that our next board meeting, we'll be back and we'll have more information to share on that. Our team is preparing on how we might accomplish that, even though we don't really have a lot of information yet. But we are preparing just in case this does come to us. My hunch is it will come to our doorsteps. And if it does, we'll be prepared to meet the task, basically. So I just wanted to share that information is out there and people are talking about it across the state and also in our community. So I wanted folks to know. Okay, go right ahead. Next page. Okay, so at this point in time, we like to shift and share information from our preliminary capital budget. Go ahead, Matt. So as we were preparing the budget, we certainly wanted to make sure that we kept the budget fiscally sound, not excessive to taxpayers, flexible, providing for flexibilities within budget codes, foolproof, providing for emergencies should they occur, and flowing, making sure that it has enough cash flow available should state aid be withheld. Go ahead, Matt. And as the board is aware, the capital portion is a part of the 3-part component budget. And the capital portion of this budget, basically it deals with the principal and interest on debt, operations, facilities maintenance, and also buildings and grounds. So those are the pieces that go into the capital portion. Okay, Matt? Now, before we get into this, I did share with the board a copy of a line-by-line document, and we can certainly go line by line if the board wishes to. These are the summaries of those line by line. So would you prefer for us to continue moving through with the PowerPoint, or would you like for us to go line by line? I just want to make sure the board's okay. Are you okay with us moving with the categories? Okay, and if the board wishes to go back, once we're done, let us know. We can do that, okay? All right, so in terms of facilities and maintenance budget, we have different functions, and then here we'll kind of share with you the information. And Nancy, please jump in wherever need be. So in terms of facilities and maintenance, Nancy, would you share this portion of the budget, please?
Certainly. So this is our custodial and maintenance for our building function. And salaries are expected to go up $79,699 from $1.8 million in 22-23 to $1.7 million in 21-22.
It's the other way around.
Our contract-
Nancy, it's the other way around. It's going from 1.7 in 21-22 up to 1.8. Go ahead.
Okay, I'll do it that way.
Yes.
I'll do it that way. In the equipment, there is no equipment for last year or for this year. In the contractual is going from, there is going to be a budget decrease of $62,400. In 22-23, it is projected at 1.17 million. In 21-22, 1.23 million. There's also a BOCES component, and that is expected to increase by $6,718, and supplies are remaining flat. Overall, the budget for the projected budget, and I want to say that because there may be some things that are tweaked along the way, is projected to go up $24,017. And the projected budget for 22-23 for the facilities piece is $3.36 million.
Go ahead,
Are there
Matt.
any questions on any of those?
Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead, Matt.
So the next piece is, this is the 1621, and this is more for the grounds of the building. And this includes grounds workers, the senior grounds worker salaries. It also includes all of our electrician, our HVAC mechanic, and all of those salaries. So the 22-23 budget for salaries is $822,245. In 21-22, our current year, $863,797. So there is a budget decrease of $41,552. Equipment is flat at $160,000. Our contractual is decreased by $7,000, going from $262,020 to $269,068. Our BOCES component is $57,269. And our current budget is $40,727, an increase in our budget of $16,542. And supplies is expected to increase by $7,500.
We have a question from Heather.
Yeah, I just had a question about equipment. Do we use $160,000 a year? Is that traditionally what we use if you go back over the last couple of years?
I'd have to go back. I know that whatever is in equipment they use, I know that they, and equipment could be anything. Equipment could be our boiler went, we need a new generator in order to go through, to hold out for a boiler or an electrical replacement. I know that we've had water heaters fail during the year. We have to plan for the worst case scenario. And we look at our building condition survey in order to make sure where those components that are going to fail, and we have to budget accordingly. For example, Heather, we just had a water heater go in Layton School, and there was no hot water. So we had to get a new one. Unfortunately, because of the supply shortages, we couldn't get a commercial hot water heaters, so we have a residential one until we get the commercial one. So these kind of things happen all the time, and we have to make sure that in facilities they have the money in order to purchase whatever large piece of equipment that may fail during the year. In terms of a history, I can get that for you, but I don't have that handy.
We can get a history for you. Okay, all right. Tom?
Yeah, was the difference between the equipment in this slide versus a zero equipment in the previous slide? How did this differentiate? Because I would assume in terms of maintenance, we would always be replacing some things on a continual basis, but why we were zero in the previous slide?
So you'll see that in for maintenance, they're mainly used big ticket items like scrubbers and floor scrubbers and things like that. We didn't budget for it because we have not budgeted for anything like that in the past. They usually buy what they need out of their supply budgets.
Okay.
But the bigger ticket items come under this function. But you will see in some of the on the wish list that facilities has that they do have some big ticket items that were not added to the budget. In the event that there is some budget, our revenues are greater than our expenditures. If the board decides to add something back, we can put it in those respective categories.
You'll see it in the next couple of slides.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, go ahead, Matt.
So this is the slide on our debt service. The debt service, we have principal and an interest component. This is on all of the debt that the district currently has outstanding. Projected principal is $5.7 million for the 22-23 year. For the 21-22 is at $5.4 million, an increase of $245,000 on the principal side. While the interest is projected to go down, in 22-23, we're at $1.4 million, almost 1.5, and in 21-22, we're at 1.6. So that's a decrease of $146,000 in debt service interest. Overall, between the combination of those two components, we see debt service projected to go up almost $100,000. The debt service interest is you can see that going down. We do have some debt falling off, and we usually pay a lot of principal up front, and that makes those interest payments less.
Okay, all right. Okay, go ahead, Matt.
So overall, you can see operation of plant budget, maintenance of plant budget, judgment and claims is a small amount. We keep that in the event that we have a tax certiorari claim that we have to pay out. That will come out of that line. And then we have the debt service budget. So in 22-23, preliminary capital budget is at $12.1 million. In 21-22, it was $12 million, net change of approximately $98,450, which is less than 1%.
Any questions on that slide there? Everybody good? Let's keep moving.
Yeah, no, I do real quick about the judgment and claims. So we had gotten this big sheet, thank you very much, Dr. Calvin, Nancy, for this. I'm just wondering, the judgment and claims, the number there, is that what we've typically been budgeting, or? Because I have a judgment and claims at the 1930 line. I just glanced at it now. Is that something we use often? Is that about the same amount of money?
It hasn't changed over the years, Jim. We put that in as a placeholder because we don't know what's going to happen from year to year. And that is under the 1930 and the 1964, those two functions. So it's a combination.
It's a two of them. Gotcha.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
why. Okay. And so under the 1964, Okay, it's a placeholder, so we don't use it that often. So I guess my question then becomes, if something along these lines did come up, is this something that any of our reserves are eligible to be used for?
Not for this kind. This is really for small judgment and claim category. If we did, it would be from our tax certiorari account.
Right.
And to get that money from that account, we could use it. It's a little more cumbersome. Judgment and claims usually have a time value on it. So we'll get a notice that's saying you need this has been, the tax has been abated on this property and you need to pay a refund in the amount of X amount of dollars by this time frame. So it's usually for the smaller claims that we have this for. We could use our reserves, but using reserves is a little longer process.
Okay, so I get, but it is possible, because as I'm learning more and more, and I appreciate you taking the time to help educate me on it. One of the purposes of our reserves is to use things if necessary. So it may be a different process, but it is at least doable. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Matt, go ahead. Okay, so now we get to the budget considerations, and there was some discussions with a buildings and grounds director around basically like wish list items, basically, and things that they would like to see if we have some extra wiggle room in our budget this year. So go right ahead, Nancy, if you want to go to those things that Dave shared with us.
Certainly. So these are in priority order. They would like a new grounds worker, and this is really to maintain the turf field. What Dave Crisafulli had found out from other school districts that have turf fields is that the maintenance on them is a lot more than we currently use. The fields there's a special training, the fields have to be swept, they have to be, the turf has to be fluffed up, they have to make sure that they have enough of the fill, and the fill hasn't moved. Not in addition to that, they have the maintenance of all the bathrooms, cleaning up around the location, and the
Bands and everything, yeah.
yeah, everybody that uses the turf field, for whatever reason, whether it be a school function or an athletic function or a band function, there is a tremendous amount of maintenance that goes into maintaining that complex. And then in the time that they're not doing that piece, they would also be used for plowing and for other grounds work needs in the area. So that was his ask for that position. I also want to note that does not include benefits. Benefits we put in another category, so that's just the base salary. All right, he also would like a maintenance,
Pam?
Sorry, thank you. I think I remember having conversation regarding a grounds worker last year. Did we just have conversation? We didn't add one?
We did not add one.
Okay,
No, we did not add it. No.
thank you.
he would like a maintenance van for the electrician, and then 3 of our trucks have also seen their limit. I spoke with our head auto mechanic, and he said that this wish list, the 3 trucks and the maintenance van, some of them are beyond their useful life. 2 zero-turn mowers. Our zero-turn mowers are about 15 years old each. A scissor lift, which right now we have a man lift, and a scissor lift would be better in order to reach the high ceilings, like in the music rooms. 2 floor scrubbers. Tom, this is what we were talking about earlier. Our floor scrubbers are at least 20 years old. And our high school and FLS gyms need to be totally refinished, which means a total sanding. And so there are 3 gyms there. So these are the things that were not included in the budget. If the district had additional funds, they could pick and choose from this menu.
Linda had a question, and then I see Lisa. Linda, you have to unmute yourself there. There we go.
I don't know if it's a question, a thought, but when will we know what kind of funding we have and when, where we can go back and look at these things?
Well, in terms of the budget from the state, right, in terms of foundation aid, so you know, it's difficult to know how soon. It depends on when the legislature and the folks get together to vote everything. So right now, we're kind of projecting at what we have right now, basically for next year, okay? But we'll know more as we kind of get into the new year. March, April, Nancy, is usually when we start to get projections.
Sometimes February in a good year, but with new governor, there's no guarantee that we're going to get that early.
Yeah. So usually they come around April, if I remember correctly, right, Nancy?
Anywhere from February to April.
I'm looking at this list, and there are, I mean, if we're going to do the kind of cleaning and upkeep, we've got to start tackling this. I mean, I think will it come back to us when we know what kind of funding we're getting?
Yeah, yes. We wanted to just share with you tonight. These are some wish list items. So yes, we will come back again, bring this back to the board before the budget is finalized, and make sure that everybody's on board in an agreement. And then we'll solidify everything. So yes, we will bring this back. Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
So Linda, just as an aside, everybody has a wish list.
Yes, I know that just from having to deal with it myself, but, as I look at this, things like lawnmowers and trucks that are falling apart and that sort of stuff we have to have, and we have to keep it up.
Yeah, we have not had a vehicle replenishment plan for our building and grounds.
Right. So yeah, I'm really glad that this list is here, but I think we should be very cognizant of coming back to this.
Absolutely. We agree. Totally agree. Lisa, you had a question there?
Actually, Nancy just answered it. I was wondering if we had a vehicle replenishment plan for, I know we do for the school buses, they kind of every few years, we keep them on a cycle, but I think it would make sense for us to put the rest of our vehicles on a cycle as well.
Totally.
I just
So that
had a
we're not faced with
conversation.
replacing. Yeah.
Yeah, I just had the same conversation with the head auto mechanic, and he said the same thing. If we can get our vehicles on a 5-year rotation where it's just maintenance, that would extend the life of them, and it would also help us plan better for the future.
Jim, you had a question, sir?
I have more of a comment. I guess I continue to be, I've followed the school budgets for some years now, and I continue to be a little bit confused about how we look at budgets based on what we had budgeted for the current year we're in, right? So when we look at the plus minuses that you showed us, we're looking at what you're proposing, and then there's what we have in the current year we're in, and there's a plus minus from that. You kindly showed us and gave us that little form I held up earlier with our budget book at the meeting. I'll thank you for that. It's something we asked for last time, and I'm great that you thought about giving it to us up front. I appreciate that. But when I look at this, what strikes me is the amount that we've spent in the past versus what we've proposed in the past. And as looking at it from a kind of a business aspect, it's hard to predict the future. I get that, and we have things that get asked. But if I look at the last 5 years for these line items, you know, the proposal is roughly, it's just a little short of $400,000 over the average, right? So if I take line 1620 and line 1621, and I look at that 5-year average that you gave us, the proposal for this year is higher than that average amount. So when I think about some of these budget considerations and look at the budget in general, I guess what my comment is as a board, or at least as an individual member, what I'm trying to look at is also, you know, what we've historically spent to try to gauge what we might spend in the future. It cannot be an absolute predictor because, like, as you said, there may be things that come up we have to spend, and it was, you know, it's a new spend. There are other things like the debt service. You know, when I look at that debt service, that seems to be pretty predictable, right, Nancy? Right, we know how much we owe. There's some wiggle room, but we're very good at budgeting what we're actually going to spend. Where there are some other line items that I think we're not following necessarily what the history is, but we're following what was done the previous year. So I guess I just ask that we look at that a little bit because I think there might be some savings in there, including some of the things you're asking for in this slide right now, if that's what we really deem are necessary. So, thank you.
I only would caution that the last year and a half have not been your typical years.
Sure.
In terms of the average because of COVID. So I would just caution to use an average very carefully on those because we were not spending what we would have had to had the students been in here for the full all year for the last 2 years.
100%, Nancy, especially when you get to certain line items like transportation, things like, yeah, 100%. So when you look at the number, you gave us 5-year numbers. So at least we have the last 2 years, which were pandemic, and we have the 3 years prior to that.
Right.
So again, I know every year is a little bit different, and you have supervisors and department heads coming to you and saying, these are the things that are different than last year. But at some point, as we look at efficiencies, and I know we're doing an efficiency study right now, but I also do believe that we can do some of our own efficiencies by looking at some of these historical numbers that you have provided the board, and I do think that it would be helpful to keep those in mind, because
I would say point well taken, Jim. Thank you very much. I think also, though, I think I heard you say line 1620. So I just would like to just caution also, because in some of those lines under the 1620 category, you have things like hourly rates for, you know, some of our custodial staff, overtime included in there, gas, water, electricity, and sometimes it's very hard to predict on some of those areas. So I do understand what you're saying, but I just want to mention that, you know, there's a number of items there that can make it difficult sometimes. But yes, looking at that average and just trying to really understand that as best we can, I agree with you. I appreciate your feedback.
Thank you much. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Okay, so these are budget considerations, and our goal is to, we wanted to share with you what the wish list is, and then as we start to solidify the budget, we want to come back and talk to you about these items, and we have put them in priority in terms of what people would like to see first, you know, down the list, basically. And so we'll come back and share more information, especially as we move closer to learning more about the details of what actually is going to come in terms of aid, revenue, once we know a little bit more about those processes. Okay? We okay? Any other questions on that at our board? Okay, Matt, go right ahead. All right, thank you, Nancy, and we will be back, board, with more information. Okay, go ahead, Matt. Now, I just want to shift for a moment and just talk a little bit about one last piece here tonight, and that is around our apprenticeship program and bidding for phase 3. So I asked Craig to come on and help with us, and my understanding is Peter is also on with us right now. And so we did have like an original resolution from years ago that was in favor of, you know, and supports our apprenticeship programs. And I think that we all definitely are in support of the trades for sure, and folks who are working with the trades in our unions. But there was several years back an original resolution that talked about basically, you know, having apprenticeship programs in place. Since then, we are, a number of years later, we've had a couple things that have come up, and just so we're clear, the board does have the right to waive this program whenever there is a need to. Recently, we had an emergency soil project, and the board did waive the apprenticeship program during that early process. Due to COVID-19, as we shared in a recent presentation, there's some projected concerns around rise in cost of materials and supplies. And the district did have, a recent discussion with the board about the bidding process of phase 3 and explained that there could be those increases in projected costs. So one of the things that we wanted to just come back to the board and talk about is, before we put the bids out, we just wanted to know, basically, would the board wish to waive the apprenticeship program to allow for open competition for phase 3? So, open competition means that both the trades and, folks who don't have the apprenticeship programs would be able to put in bids and be allowed to basically have a chance at this particular project. Craig and Peter, Nancy, you want to talk a little bit about this and just share information, and we can go from there?
Well, Nancy, if you want to begin, okay. So I guess some of the questions that have come up with the apprenticeship program is, what is it costing the district, or what is the cost of having such a program? And it's really a misconception to say that there's a cost associated with the program, other than its reduction in the ability to have more competition bid on projects. As you've seen from the phase 2, we were able to waive the site contractor and the general contractor. We would have probably only had one contractor for GC to select from if this program was enforced, and we would probably have to go to the third lowest bidder on the site contractor, which was approximately $700,000+ above the low bidder, who was not union. The other issue too to consider is, especially in the consideration of the general contractor, a lot of these companies are brokers. They have very limited crews that they use themselves. So a lot of these subcontractors, for example, the GC utilized a drywall finishing contractor that was union, does participate in apprenticeship program as one of their subs. So a lot of times you're also seeing that the subcontractors, are utilizing the apprenticeship program as part of their business, but not necessarily required to limit their competition with other contractors, if that makes sense.
Right.
If I might add just one item, I had a very unique conversation today with 2 union contractors on another project. One was mechanical and one was plumbing. And one of the things that they're finding is the one item is class sizes for up and coming trades. It used to be classes for apprentices working into the trades were roughly around 24 to 26 people. They have reduced that class size down now to 12 to 14 because they don't have people that are interested in the trades right now. The other aspect is that they are continuing to have the union reps come on to job sites asking for them to hire more people. But when they do so and they ask to bring people on, they don't have the people in the union halls right now, which is both detrimental from the apprenticeship side because you don't have the class sizes, and then you don't have the people in the halls right now. And that's become a huge issue for any of the union contractors. And they're feeling it all over New York State right now.
So, Heather, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm just wondering if what that gentleman just suggested, if that is a result of COVID and kind of that, or if it's actually a trend over like 10-year span, not just the last couple of years.
What I'm understanding, Ms. Del Conte, is it is a trend that it has been going down. I do think that it has been exacerbated over the past year and a half due to COVID, but it has been a trend that we've seen at least 5 to 8 years right now.
Craig, did you want to add anything to that? No. Okay. Lisa?
I just had two things. One is, I mean, I think we could make the argument that by waiving the requirement for apprenticeships, that actually helps to decrease the number of people going into apprenticeship programs, right? Like it's kind of over time, as more and more municipalities or institutions go with non-union shops, like it actually pushes the demand to the non-union shops, right? So like we would be, I think, kind of perpetuating the situation by this. My second thing is a question about if we had open bid on this, would we be required to go with the lowest bidder? Or could we, you know, determine that we would go with like the second highest bidder if it were had an apprentice program?
No, you are responsible for open. Public bidding law requires that you go with the lowest responsible bidder. So regardless of them being open or closed shop, if they're low and they meet all the requirements and they have the experience, then you are bound to go with them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Right. Nancy or Peter, did you want to add anything else to that, or are we all?
You know, I just wanted to say that it's not that we're prohibiting union shops from bidding. It's just that we want to make sure that everyone gets a fair chance. And if another non-union shop comes in, maybe the union shop will sharpen their pencil and come in with a different price. We've seen it before in our last phase happen, and you know, we're hoping to see it again. We just want to make sure that we're doing right by the taxpayers and in picking the lowest responsible bidder, and that we're creating more competition.
The one last item that I would add is, although for the phase 2 project, our general contractor was not a union shop, at least one of their substantial subcontractors who did the metal framing, drywall, ceilings, and painting, they were a union shop. So it's not as if the general contractor who's non-union is saying, I don't use anybody in the union at all. They absolutely do. The other one was the site contractor, and one of the bigger portions of his contract was the actual turf installation, which was a union contractor. So it's not as if the folks that are being open to bid that are non-union are saying no to the union subcontractors. Mm-hmm. They're hiring them because we are finding in some cases not only do they have the manpower in those shops, but they have the quality of work.
So Pam had a question, Linda, and then Heather. Pam?
Thank you. I don't know if it's questions or comments. It's a couple of things. Peter, I'd be curious to know, did you talk to our local union people about their shortage of classes? I know their class sizes are getting smaller and stuff, so I'm just curious because in Oswego County there seems to not be enough union labor. In apprenticeships are usually 4 and 5 years worth of classes, so there's a larger group to choose from, and it's just an extension of education. We're in the education department, so apprenticeships are an extension of education. Sometimes our own graduates from our high school are in these apprenticeship programs. I don't want to send, I hear your message that, well, they use union contractors, they're subcontractors, but we have no guarantee of that. And I'm not comfortable with that message. I'm not comfortable with waiving the apprenticeship requirement. These are the people that put us here, and these are the people that pay the school taxes, are union labor. We have a big union movement in this city, and I cannot support waiving the apprenticeship program for phase 3.
Okay. Linda, you had a question or comment?
I'm just gonna follow up with Pam. I mean, you know, I've been in Oswego 73 years and we're a union city. And if you want quality work, then you should go with quality people. People that have gone through the 5-year apprentice program, that are highly trained. What are we getting when you go out and you hire non-union? I'm a union person. We're a union district. So I'm not going to waive this. My vote will always be to keep it open.
Okay. Heather? Heather, you're still on mute, Heather.
Shoot, and I said the best things. No, with the emergency situation, I think we were kind of caught off guard, and we really hadn't thought things through. I feel like the policy was put in place because it reflected certain things that we valued. If for some reason circumstances or our values have shifted, then we need to address the policy and not continually waive it. And I think that to do that, we really need to hear from both sides of the situation so that we can get all the information we need and really address the policy as a whole, as opposed to continually waiving something that was put in place for good reasons by another board.
Okay. Tom?
Yeah, I just want to say, I mean, I'm a very strong unionist, and I believe in unions. I believe they set working conditions, wages. I think they're very vital. But then when I get on the board, I have to take that hat and I have to put it to the side, and I have to look at the whole picture, and I have to look at this particular project, and knowing that in the first phase 2, when we did that, we had a savings of almost $1 million, and that was very appropriate. Now, I'm not saying that one way or the other, but I just want to lay this out there so we get a look at it, the whole scope. The other part that we look at is in this next phase, in the last phase, our local unions were doing, Oswego Mechanical, J&A, unionists with apprentice programs. We're in there and we're working, right? So it didn't exclude anybody, and it had been waived. So I want to get the best bids. I agree with Heather. We need to look at the policy and make it work so we're not flipping back and forth. I also would like to know, Craig, in this next phase, we're not looking necessarily at site work. What are we looking at in terms of the trades, and which trades primarily we'll be working with so that we would, still be utilizing?
We have general construction. We have a prime for masonry restoration, and then we have the mechanical, plumbing, and electrical work.
Okay, so all of the trades that would have been, except potentially the GC, that will utilize the program, whether waived or not, they'll be competing for it.
And the masonry restoration, there are limited companies that are union based for that, because it's kind of a specialty.
Right.
So we may be limited if we also impose the apprenticeship on that contract.
Okay. So that's all. I just wanted to say I agreed with Heather regarding looking at the policy, but trying to look at this in the big picture and whether it would really affect it. Because we're already being affected by COVID. We know the budget is always going to change the scope. I don't want to continue to change the scope. And the one thing I do want to say is people talk about the education component of it, which is vital. You're right, Pam. We're about education. But we're also responsible for creating the educational environment at the best and being the most efficient with that money and putting people, in those environments. So I hate to change the scope of the project and limit that, to affect more people than at this particular juncture.
Great. I see Linda had her hand up first, and then Jim.
I think I was thinking that, we're talking about the apprentice, and there's only 20 to 26 now. But with this particular leadership in Washington, you know, things are going to break here. You know, there's, I'm sure, Greg, you can help me here with, there are two big projects that are coming up. And it's going to start booming around here.
Well, Linda, I want you to know that things are booming now. The apprenticeship program, they need to get more kids in the pipeline.
Yeah, and I
There
think,
is no one that's in the halls sitting on a bench looking for work. Everyone has work if they want it. So, and it's going to be that way, at least based on the work that we see coming into our office for at least the next 3 to 5 years. There is plenty of construction work that's going to be out there, and it's going to be plenty of opportunities for many contractors. You know, my son, myself, you know, he wants to go and become an electrician, and I'm supporting that. You know, I get, you know, hit in the head by the wife because she wants him to go to college. But I'm saying there's different opportunities out there, and I never want it to seem like we're coming at it from an attack on the apprenticeship program or the unions, because we're not. We're serve at the pleasure of the board and the district. We just want to make sure that you're aware fiscally that you are restricting your opportunities by having this resolution in place. And if there's times that we can waive it to make sure that we're maximizing the bid competition, that's going to serve the community better in the long run, because you're going to be being good fiscal advisors of the money that you're getting.
Greg, if you always go with the lowest bid, I mean, if that's the mentality, are we getting?
Yeah, you know, keep in mind, just because they're the lowest bid, the language is lowest responsible bidder. So they just can't be someone with a pickup truck coming in and saying, I'll do it for $1. They have to meet certain requirements that are in our construction documents. They have to have the experience in this, so many years experience in it. We have qualification statements that they need to meet. They have to be fiscally sound. There's a lot that we put on any contractor to provide proof that they can do the job that they need to do. So just because it's the lowest bid, it's not necessarily the cheapest or the most inexperienced. We are holding people to standards regardless of the program or not.
My final thought is, I think you're going to see the unions calling for more apprentice. They're going to have to cover the jobs. But thank you for your explanation. It does help.
So, thank you, Linda. And Jim had a question. Before Jim comes, I agree with Heather when she said, hey, we need to look at this resolution. Because, when this whole resolution came out, it was multiple years ago, and things have changed. In terms of that type of resolution, like Craig, you deal with 60 to 80 districts? How many do you have that still have that resolution in place?
We only have Oswego that does that.
Yeah. So it is something that I agree with Heather that the board may want to consider and think about in terms of the future. If the board says, hey, we want to continue with things with the original resolution, then I think we serve the pleasure of the board. We should do that. But I think we should definitely we should revisit that conversation. I agree, Heather. Jim, you had a question, sir?
Yeah, so just a couple thoughts on this. I like the fact that we've talked about a lot of this because it is the lowest responsible bidder. So we're not just taking anybody. So no matter which way we decide, it is somebody who we believe can do the job, and they've proven they can do the job. I do like the fact we've also talked about our skilled labor force. This is something that I think is not talked enough, and if you look at the Department of Labor, it won't be too long, if we're not already there, that people are going to be saying, why can't I find an electrician? Why can I not find a plumber or a construction person? I mean, can't remember the last number I heard, but it was something like 2 million people were going to be in deficit of these very talented, skilled laborers. Mm-hmm. So I do believe that there is something value added to this. I'm actually going to give out myself here a little bit in the fact that I've been thinking apprenticeships, and it wasn't until this conversation that I realized that maybe it's only unions doing it. All right, we've said the union has been used so many times, and correct me if I'm wrong, But I was figuring there may be non-union places that also held apprenticeships. But the way it seems this conversation's gone, they're probably intertwined. I am a union member myself. I'm a fan of the unions, but it's separate from this conversation. I will end in saying that for me, I wasn't a part of when we voted for phase 2 to waive this requirement. I wasn't here. For the emergency project, I voted in for waiving it only because it was an emergency project. It wasn't planned. We needed to get out in front of it. I was okay with it. It was all extra funding. Because I was not a part of the original proposal back in 2008, I can't speak to the larger conversation. And I will actually give favor to those individuals, and I would uphold their resolution unless it were an extraordinary circumstance. I'd be open to another conversation. I'm always open to conversations. But given an ask for a waiver, it seems to me as though if I were to do that, I would want a bigger conversation about why it all took place in the first place. And if I look back to, I think 2008, I moved to Oswego in 2004. 2004 to 2008, those were pretty fat years economically. We did really great. We were doing well. And I think it's easy to start getting rid of good ideas when times get tight. When things get tough financially, we go, well, we really wanted to support this, but now economically, we're maybe not at a place to do that right now. I think there are some values in education being the foremost for us that we need to sustain, and we need to keep holding true. And I think the apprenticeships as a district, we don't directly teach those students, but our students do end up in those type programs. And I personally would like to keep supporting them as long as that resolution is still on our books.
Okay. Okay, are there any other questions for Peter or for Craig or Nancy on this topic at all? We all good? All right, so we just wanted to share a little bit and just kind of see where you were, and then I believe there's a piece in the rest of the docket tonight to vote on with respect to that. All right, thank you very much, Craig. Thank you, Peter, and thank you, board, for the conversation. We appreciate your feedback. Okay, all set? All right, Matt. Okay, one more, Matt. I think we're all set tonight. Thank you, board.
Next on the agenda is the consent agenda, items A and B. If I could have a motion, please.
Move it.
Second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Next is personnel with Dr. Sweeney.
Hello, our first two items are retirements. So for A and B, upon the presentation and recommendation of Dr. Calvin, we ask that the Board of Education accept the following retirements. Whereas the individuals were employed continuously by the Oswego City School District, and they admirably served the students and staff of the district with their full commitment to their responsibilities, and worked in partnership with their fellow employees, and with their full service and dedication to the best interests of all students in our school district. Now therefore be it resolved that the Oswego City School District hereby recognizes that their service was an asset to the students and staff, and we express our sincere gratitude and appreciation for their years of service. A is Lori Bushnell, who is retiring as a music teacher. She has worked for us since September 1st, 1989, and will be retiring effective March 19th, 2022. And our second is Pamela Reynolds, as a school bus driver for us. Ms. Reynolds has worked for us since January 3rd, 2001, and will be retiring effective February 28th, 2022.
Items A through B, motion.
I'll make the motion.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
I would just like to say thank you for both, for your service, and I Mrs. Bushnell had the ukulele club at the beginning of Kingsford Park, and my daughter was really excited to do that, and it was really something special. Went out of your way to do something like that, and so I just say I really appreciate that. Good luck with retirement for both of you.
Absolutely.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Our other professional staff recommendations are C through F as presented. If there are any questions?
Items C through F, could I have a motion, please?
I'll make the motion.
Second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
And our support staff recommendations are items G through K to our substitute and temporary employees.
Items G through K, could I have a motion, please?
Move it.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Next is finance with Nancy Squires.
A is a donation from Exelon to Fitchie Park School in the amount of $220. B is a contract with CT Mail Associates for $7,400, and this is for the FEMA survey of the floodplain. And C is a budget transfer for technology from their state-aided software to state-aided hardware in the amount of $16,318 and 40 cents. A through C.
Items A through C, could I have a motion, please?
I'll make the motion.
Second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed?
And D is the resolution for the board to waive the apprenticeship program for phase 3 of the capital project.
Would you like a roll call vote on this, or?
Yes.
Okay,
Well, your point of order, we actually need a motion in a second. If there's not one, we just move on.
Right.
could I have a motion for item D, please? No motion?
So if it doesn't come to motion, we just go on.
Okay. Next on the agenda is items from the board.
Yeah, did everyone get a chance to look at the board goals that Tom sent around? That is something we'd like to take action on. It can be, I mean, we're delinquent as it is, but we can wait till the next meeting if people want more time with it, or we could actually move them as is and post them. We had the whole discussion in public, and we could post them, you know, and move them tonight. Tom, did you want to say something?
No, I was all good. I just, basically what we need to do is define the time frame on our objectives. We don't have anything, I just put in the date and a year as a placeholder, but we would just have to be specific about those. I don't know if we want to do that now in discussion, and then just do that and go ahead. We had no specific goals in, or excuse me, objectives in one, but we did in 2 and 4. So that will be that. Do we want to go ahead with it?
Thoughts?
So I saw your placeholder note, Tom, and I actually figured we had set the goal for by the end of the year to have done these things. I think we did. I actually registered for the lobby day in February. So, I mean, I guess we could set like a March date for that if we wanted, but it's kind of like not going to end there, I think. So
Right.
I'm fine with leaving end of year, the end of the year as, you know, getting this done by then.
Okay, so everybody knows what we're talking about. That's under ensure district operating in efficient manner. And we're going to advocate and explore options to create the nuclear reserve fund. So that's what Lisa was speaking to. Go to Albany and lobby for that, which I've done I did 2 years ago, and we can get together with the Oswego County School Boards Association and meet up as a collective, and then we can have a seating with Will Barkley up there, so we can really get that directly to where it needs to be gotten.
Go ahead, Lisa.
Yeah, so I don't know if we can reach out to I'm assuming it's the Rochester School District city. I have to look it up really to see where the Gannett nuclear plant is too, because we may want to work with them. I
think
know.
it's Wayne.
I think we're the only. What is it? Wayne County.
I think Dr. Calvin actually has experience with that.
Dr.
Wayne.
Calvin, you're muted.
It's Wayne Central, where I was last, and I can certainly walk you through the whole process and provide all the supports that are needed. And there are several other districts. Dunkirk is one that has a nuclear power plant. And there's another one out in the New York City area. We all kind of went together along with Oswego to work on the nuclear piece. So I can certainly work with you and guide and support the board.
And Karen, do you have the legislation or that was written last time that we took up? Do you remember that? Do you have access, or Nancy? Do you?
I have it.
Have a copy of it, so we don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Mm-hmm.
So Tom, I think back to the goals, I think that Lisa's correct. Just having the end of the year is good, and we can revisit our objectives and in the spring and see where we are and kind of adjust as need be.
I'm good with that. I think if everybody else is good with these, they need no editing, and we're good as they are, then we just go ahead and do that. I can give a copy to Karen.
Yeah, so do we want to just take that and put it as a Board of Education item on the next agenda to officially adopt that?
We can do that. We can wait till then if you want, and then then it's posted publicly so people can really look at it if you want.
I just think personally that when we vote on things, they should be something that's in the agenda for the meeting unless it's an emergency situation. I just think it's a good standard practice to have those kind of things on the agenda and posted before a vote. That's just me.
No, I agree. I think it would. Let's make it official and run it through.
And it doesn't change the fact that those are the goals we're working on now anyways. So we'll make it official in January. Sound good?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Would there be any other items from the board?
Pam, we missed you, so you better do your thing.
I was so disappointed. Not one of you stepped up to say thank you to our faculty, staff, administrators, students, and families for all that you've done. Especially thank you, Dr. Calvin and your administrative team, including the building principals, who really did, and all the substitutes and the teachers that filled in on their free periods to try to keep our kids in person as long as you possibly could. I applaud you, because that was not easy. I heard things every day. The numbers that Dr. Calvi gave us, it was incredible that you guys were able to stay even a week longer. That whole last week was nuts. So thank you. Just remember, everybody, be kind out there. We're coming. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to everyone. Enjoy your time with your family that many of us didn't have last year. And just, be kind. The world needs more kindness. Thank you all.
Sean?
I'd like to throw a shout out to the girls' junior varsity and varsity basketball teams that raised over $2,000 for their annual hoop shoot. They went shopping and then wrapped presents, and 12 families with 38 kids will have a better Christmas this year due to Coach Babcock and Coach Labner and Assistant Coach Reno's going shopping and doing what they do every year, apparently.
Thank you.
Well, I'm sorry.
Oh, just any other items? And Pam, we couldn't do it as good as you, so we're glad to have you back.
Would the Board of Education like to move to executive session for the purpose of the discussion of negotiations and the discussion of the work performance of a particular person?
Move it.
Second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? You may move to executive session.
Thank you.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Merry Christmas.